Nothing like the sound of your marriage dying while you're elbow deep in transmission fluid. I was under Mrs. Henderson's rusted Buick when I heard them in my kitchen, my wife Jessica and her three-woman wrecking crew. The garage door was open to the house, and their voices carried like nails on chalkboard. "You deserve so much better than this, Jess," came Tara's voice, sharp and poisonous. "Look at this place. Look at your life." I wiped grease from my hands and stayed perfectly still under the car. 38 years old, and I was hiding in my own garage like a kid eavesdropping on adults. "He's not a bad guy," Jessica said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Mike works hard." Working hard at what? That was Megan, the social media vulture who documented every breath she took. Fixing cars? That's not a career, honey. That's surviving. The third voice belonged to Lila, always the quiet instigator. "Remember when you wanted to go back to school? What did he say?" "That we couldn't afford it," Jessica admitted. "Because he'd rather spend money on car parts than his wife's dreams," Tara snapped. "A real man would support your ambitions." I closed my eyes and counted to 10. We'd had that conversation 2 years ago. Jessica wanted to get a master's degree in social work, $40,000 we didn't have, with no guarantee of a job afterward. I'd suggested community college first, maybe part-time classes. Apparently, that made me the villain. "You're still young, Jess, still beautiful. Why settle for this?" Megan's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "There are men out there who would worship you." "Maybe I will find someone better," Jessica laughed, but it wasn't her real laugh. It was the fake one she used at parties when she wanted to fit in. I slid out from under the Buick and stood up slowly, my knees popping. The kitchen window faced the garage, and I could see them through the thin curtains. 3 women in their mid-30s, dressed like they were heading to brunch at the country club instead of sitting in my working-class kitchen. Tara Mitchell, twice divorced, lived off alimony and spent her days convincing other women their marriages were prisons. Megan Shaw, the wannabe influencer with her ring light and constant need for content. And Lila Barnes, married to a decent guy named Paul who worked construction, but always looking for ways to stir up drama in other people's lives. They'd been circling Jessica like vultures for months, ever since she started going to that yoga studio downtown. Before that, she'd been happy enough with our life. We had a nice house in Millfield, Ohio, not fancy, but ours. My auto shop was doing well. Our daughter Emma was 14 and mostly stayed out of trouble. But these 3 had filled Jessica's head with poison about settling and deserving better. They made our 15-year marriage sound like a prison sentence. I walked to the window and tapped on the glass. 4 heads turned toward me, and I gave them a friendly wave. Jessica's face went pale. Tara smirked. Megan actually reached for her phone, probably hoping to catch some drama for her Instagram stories. Walking through the side door into the kitchen, I smiled at the group. "Ladies, how's everyone doing?" "Fine, Mike," Jessica said quickly. "We were just talking." "I heard something about Jessica deserving better." I kept my voice light, conversational. "That's interesting feedback." Tara leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "We're just being good friends, Mike, supporting each other." "Of course, that's what friends do." I opened the refrigerator and grabbed a beer. "You know, Tara, I was just thinking about support. Didn't Jessica mention you needed help with your car payment last month?" Tara's smirk faltered. "That was temporary." "And Megan, wasn't it nice of Jessica to let you use the shop's equipment for those car photos? For free?" I popped open the beer and took a sip. "Great content, by the way. Really captured the struggling influencer aesthetic." Megan's face flushed red. "We should probably go." "Don't leave on my account. I'm just grabbing a drink before I get back to work. You know, that thing I do to keep the lights on." I looked directly at Jessica. "Speaking of which, honey, did you remember to deposit the Henderson check? We've got bills coming due." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Jessica's friends exchanged glances, and I could practically see the wheels turning. Here was the reality check they didn't want to face. Someone had to pay for the life Jessica was supposedly settling for. "Actually," Lila said, standing up, "we should let you two talk." They gathered their purses and water bottles, making quick excuses. Tara paused at the door. "Think about what we discussed, Jess. You only get one life." After they left, Jessica and I stood in the kitchen, not looking at each other. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. "How much did you hear?" she asked finally. "Enough." I finished my beer and set the bottle on the counter. "So, you're thinking about finding someone better?" "I didn't say that." "You laughed when they suggested it. That's not exactly a denial." Jessica turned away, staring out the window at our backyard. We'd planted those flowers together 3 springs ago, back when she still smiled at my jokes and didn't flinch when I touched her shoulder. I don't know, Mike. Sometimes I wonder what else is out there." "What else? You mean like what? A guy with a college degree? Someone who wears a suit to work? Maybe someone who dreams bigger than this." She gestured around our kitchen. Clean, comfortable, but not magazine perfect. "Someone who wants more." "More what? More debt? More stress? More pretending to be something we're not?" "More life." The words burst out of her, surprising us both. "God, Mike, when's the last time we did anything exciting? When's the last time you looked at me like I was special instead of just there?" The accusation hit harder than I expected. When was the last time? Before the shop got busy, before Emma became a teenager, before life became about mortgages and oil changes and making sure everyone else was taken care of. "I look at you," I said quietly. "No, you look through me. Like I'm part of the furniture." She finally turned around, and I saw tears in her eyes. "Tara's right. I am settling. We both are. Tara's a bitter woman who can't stand seeing other people happy." "Are we happy, Mike? Really?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to say yes, wanted to remind her of good times and shared dreams. But standing there in our kitchen, looking at my wife of 15 years, I realized I couldn't remember the last time either of us had laughed together. "I thought we were," I said finally. Jessica wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I need some air. I'm going for a drive." She grabbed her purse and keys, leaving me alone with the echo of her friend's poison and the growing certainty that my marriage was falling apart. I walked back to the garage and slid under the Buick, but I couldn't concentrate on the transmission. All I could think about was Jessica's face when she asked if we were happy, and the way she'd said maybe when her friends talked about finding someone better. My phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. "Staying at Tara's tonight. Need to think." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "Okay." But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. 3 days later, Jessica came home like nothing had happened. She made coffee, asked about Emma's school project, and kissed my cheek before I left for work. The kiss felt like an apology or maybe a goodbye. I wanted to believe we were getting back to normal, but something had shifted. She was different, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She hummed while doing laundry and spent extra time on her makeup. When I asked about her night at Tara's, she just said they'd talked things through. The real wake-up call came a week later. I was cleaning out Jessica's car, something I'd done monthly for 15 years, part of my husband routine. She always left receipts and trash scattered around, and I'd learned to just handle it without complaint. Under the passenger seat, I found her phone charger and a crumpled receipt from Giuseppe's, the fancy Italian place downtown. Dinner for 2, expensive wine, total bill over $100. The date was from 3 nights ago, when Jessica had said she was having dinner with Megan. My stomach dropped. We hadn't eaten at Giuseppe's since our anniversary 2 years ago, and even then we'd split an entree to keep costs down. I smoothed out the receipt and stared at it. Maybe she'd treated Megan to a nice meal. But Jessica was always careful with money, sometimes to a fault. This wasn't like her. That evening, I casually mentioned the receipt. "Hey, saw you went to Giuseppe's with Megan? Special occasion?" Jessica paused while loading the dishwasher. "What receipt?" "Found it in your car. Looked like quite a dinner." "Oh, that." "Yeah, Megan got a promotion at work. We celebrated." The lie came so easily it scared me. Megan worked part-time at a boutique and posted constantly about her life. If she'd gotten a promotion, it would have been all over social media with a dozen selfies and motivational quotes. I checked. Nothing. The next few days I started paying attention in ways I hadn't before. Jessica was getting dressed up for yoga class. Full makeup, expensive workout clothes that still had tags on them. She'd bought new perfume, something floral and expensive that she wore even to run errands. Her phone was always face down now, and she took it with her to the bathroom. When it buzzed during dinner, she'd glance at it with a little smile that never reached her eyes when she looked at me. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Jessica said she was going to Lila's for book club, something they'd never done before, but I didn't question it. I was trying to give her space, hoping whatever phase this was would pass. Around 10 p.m., I realized I'd left my good wrench set in Jessica's car. I needed it for an early morning job, so I went outside to grab it. Her car wasn't in the driveway. I called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. Standing in my empty driveway, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Book club at Lila's house, 5 minutes away, and Jessica's car was nowhere to be seen. I got in my truck and drove to Lila's. The house was dark except for a porch light. Paul's work truck was in the driveway, but no other cars. I sat there for 10 minutes, engine running, trying to come up with innocent explanations. Maybe they'd gone somewhere else. Maybe I'd misunderstood. But I hadn't misunderstood anything. My wife was lying to me. I drove home and waited. Jessica came back at 11:30, slipping quietly through the front door like she was trying not to wake me. I was sitting in the living room with the lights off. "Mike, you scared me." She put her hand to her chest, breathing hard. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" "Couldn't sleep. How was book club?" "Fine, good discussion." She was already moving toward the stairs. "I'm exhausted. Going to bed." "What book are you reading?" She froze on the third step. "What?" "The book. What are you and Lila reading for book club?" The pause was too long. We're reading that one everyone's talking about. The Girl on the Train thing." "The Girl on the Train came out 8 years ago, Jess." "The new one. There's a new one." She was climbing the stairs faster now. "I'm really tired, Mike." I listened to her footsteps above me, heard the shower turn on. She was washing off evidence of wherever she'd really been. The next morning, I did something I'd never done in 15 years of marriage. I checked the GPS history in Jessica's car. My hands shook as I scrolled through the locations. Giuseppe's restaurant, 3 times in 2 weeks. An address I didn't recognize in the newer part of town, Riverside Apartments. She'd been there 4 times, always in the evening, always for 2 to 3 hours. I sat in my truck outside the apartment complex that afternoon, feeling like a private investigator in a bad movie. Building C, apartment 247. Jessica's car was parked in visitor spot 12. I waited. At 6:15, the apartment door opened. Jessica came out first, adjusting her hair and smoothing her clothes. Behind her was a guy I'd never seen before, young, maybe mid-20s, with the kind of muscles that came from spending serious time at the gym. He pulled her back for another kiss, right there in the doorway where anyone could see. His hands were on her waist, possessive and familiar. This wasn't their first time. Jessica laughed at something he said, the real laugh I hadn't heard in months. She looked happy in a way that made my chest ache. I watched my wife of 15 years drive away from another man's apartment, and something inside me died. But something else was born. Something cold and calculating and absolutely furious. I started the truck and followed her home, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice. By the time I pulled into our garage, I'd made a decision. If Jessica wanted better, I'd show her exactly what better looked like, and what it cost. His name was Jace Morrison, and he was everything I wasn't. 24 years old, personal trainer at Elite Fitness downtown, drove a black Camaro that was probably worth more than I made in 6 months. His Instagram was full of shirtless gym selfies and motivational quotes about living your best life and taking what you deserve. I spent 3 days learning everything about him. It wasn't hard. The kid posted his entire life online. He lived in a one-bedroom apartment that cost more per month than our mortgage, worked out twice a day, and had the kind of confidence that came from never having real responsibilities. He was also broke. Behind the flashy car and designer gym clothes, Jace Morrison was drowning in debt. Credit cards maxed out, car payments behind, and according to my buddy Sam, who worked at the bank, he'd been turned down for 3 different loans in the past month. That's when I understood what was really happening. This wasn't just about Jessica finding someone better. This was about her friends pushing her towards someone who looked better on the surface, while I was the stable, boring husband who paid the bills and kept the lights on. Jace was the fantasy. I was the reality. The question was, did Jessica understand the difference? I got my answer the following Tuesday. I'd started tracking Jessica's movements without her knowing, not proud of it, but necessary. She'd told me she was going shopping with Megan, but her car was at Jace's apartment complex again. This time, I didn't just watch from the parking lot. I walked up to Building C and found apartment 247. The walls were thin. I could hear them talking inside, and what I heard made my blood boil. "Can't keep doing this forever," Jessica was saying. "It's getting harder to lie to Mike." "So don't lie." Jace's voice was younger than I'd expected, with that casual arrogance of someone who'd never had to fight for anything. "Just leave him. It's not that simple. There's Emma, and the house, and what? You're going to stay married to a mechanic forever because it's complicated?" I heard footsteps, like he was pacing. "Babe, you deserve so much more than that life." There was that word again. Deserve. Like happiness was something you earned by wanting it badly enough. "Tara thinks I should ask for the house in the divorce," Jessica said quietly. My heart stopped. Divorce. They were already talking about divorce. Smart woman, that Tara. You should listen to her more. Jace's voice was closer now, probably sitting next to Jessica on his couch. "Look, I know this is scary, but sometimes you have to take a leap. Trust me, once you're free of all that baggage, you'll wonder why you waited so long." Baggage. 15 years of marriage, a daughter, a home we'd built together. All of it was just baggage to this kid. "What about money?" Jessica asked. "Mike handles all our finances. I don't even know where to start." "That's what lawyers are for. And hey, once everything's settled, we can figure out our situation. I've been thinking about getting a bigger place anyway." Our situation. He was already planning their future together while I was standing in a hallway listening to my marriage dissolve. I left before I did something stupid, like kick down his door. But walking back to my truck, I felt that cold calculation settling deeper into my bones. Jessica wanted out. Her friends were encouraging it, and Jace was the catalyst they were using to blow up my life. Fine. But if they wanted to play games, I'd show them what a real game looked like. That night, Jessica came home with shopping bags from the mall, proof of her alibi. She'd actually gone shopping after leaving Jace's apartment, probably to cover her tracks. "Find anything good?" I asked, looking up from my laptop. "Just some things for Emma. You know how fast she's growing." Another lie, delivered with the same casual ease that was becoming her specialty. "That's nice. Hey, I've been thinking about what you said the other day, about us not doing anything exciting." Jessica paused in sorting through the bags. "Yeah? Maybe we should plan a trip, just the two of us. Remember how we used to talk about going to Nashville?" For a moment, her face softened. "Mike, that's sweet, but with work and Emma's school..." We could make it work. I want to make it work, Jess. I want us to make it work. I saw the guilt flicker across her face, there and gone in an instant. Let me think about it, okay? Sure, no pressure. But there was pressure, and we both knew it. The pressure of secrets and lies, and the growing distance between us. The pressure of choices that couldn't be undone. Jessica went upstairs early, claiming a headache. I stayed in the living room with my laptop, researching divorce law in Ohio and calculating what our assets would look like if split down the middle. The house would have to be sold. Jessica would get half of everything, plus alimony and child support. Emma would probably choose to live with her mother. Teenagers always did in these situations. I'd lose my family, my home, and probably my business, since half our equipment was purchased jointly and would need to be liquidated to split the assets. Meanwhile, Jace Morrison would get the prize, a beautiful woman with a nice settlement, ready to start fresh without any of that pesky baggage holding her back. Unless, of course, someone changed the rules of the game. I closed the laptop and went upstairs. Jessica was already asleep, or pretending to be. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, looking at the woman I'd loved for 15 years, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. Tomorrow, I'd start playing by different rules. The first rule of warfare: know your enemy's weaknesses. Jace Morrison had plenty. I started with the Camaro. It was his pride and joy, his peacock feathers, the symbol of everything he thought made him better than guys like me. He posted pictures of it constantly, always parked in the same spot at his gym, always gleaming under the lights. Wednesday morning, I paid Elite Fitness a visit. The gym was exactly what I'd expected, all chrome and mirrors and loud music, full of people taking selfies between sets. Jace was easy to spot, working with a client near the free weights, wearing a tank top that showed off his arms, and that cocky smile that probably worked on lonely housewives. I watched him for 20 minutes, learning his routine. He was good at his job, I had to admit, encouraging without being pushy, professional but friendly. I could see why Jessica was attracted to him. But I also saw the cracks, the way he checked his phone constantly, the designer gym clothes that were starting to show wear, the nervous energy of someone trying to maintain an image he couldn't afford. After his session, Jace headed to the parking lot. I followed at a distance, watching him walk to the Camaro with that swagger that screamed, "Look at me." He didn't notice the small puncture in his rear tire until he was halfway home. I know, because I followed him. Watched him pull over, frustrated and confused. Watched him call a tow truck and wait on the side of the road for 45 minutes. It was a small thing, petty even, but it was a start. That evening, Jessica mentioned she might go to yoga class. I smiled and told her to have fun, then settled in to wait. She didn't come home until almost 11. The next morning, I found a new receipt in her car. This time, it was from a sports bar near Jace's apartment. 2 drinks, expensive appetizers, another $100 evening that we couldn't afford, but somehow Jessica was managing. I checked our joint credit card statement online. Giuseppe's, the sports bar, Victoria's Secret, a boutique downtown I'd never heard of. Jessica was spending money like we were rich, funding her affair with our savings. That's when I realized this wasn't just about emotions anymore. This was theft. I printed out the credit card statements and highlighted every suspicious charge. 3 months of evidence, thousands of dollars spent on her secret life with Jace Morrison. Then I did something that felt both necessary and terrible. I changed the passwords on our accounts and set up alerts for any new charges. If Jessica wanted to play house with her boy toy, she could do it on her own dime. The explosion came Friday evening. Jessica tried to pay for gas and her card was declined. She tried the backup card, also declined. By the time she got home, she was furious. "What did you do to our credit cards?" I looked up from the couch where I was watching TV with Emma. "What do you mean?" "They're not working, both of them." "That's weird. Let me check." I pulled out my phone and made a show of logging into our account. "Oh, I see the problem. We're maxed out." Jessica's face went pale. What? Look at this. I turned the phone toward her, showing the statement. Giuseppe's 3 times this month. Victoria's Secret. Someplace called Bliss Boutique. Sports bar charges. I looked up at her with innocent confusion. Honey, what's all this spending? Emma glanced between us, sensing tension. I'm going to my room, she said quietly. After Emma left, Jessica sat down heavily in the chair across from me. Mike, I can explain. I'm sure you can. But first, help me understand something. You told me you were at book club Tuesday night, but there's a charge here from Flanagan's Sports Bar at 9:30 p.m. Were you reading at the bar? The silence stretched between us. Jessica's hands were shaking. And this Victoria's Secret charge, $140. That's a lot of underwear, Jess, especially since I haven't seen any of it. Stop. Her voice was barely a whisper. Giuseppe's 3 times. We haven't been to Giuseppe's together in 2 years, but apparently you've been there 3 times in the past month. With who, Jessica? She started crying then. Not the pretty tears from movies, but the ugly, desperate sobs of someone whose lies had finally caught up with them. I'm sorry, she choked out. Mike, I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? The lying? The cheating? Or just sorry you got caught? She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. How long have you known? Long enough. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Jessica wiped her face with her sleeve. I don't know. I'm so confused. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen. You made choices, Jess. Lots of them. For months. It's not what you think. Jace and I, we're just... Don't. I held up a hand. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending this is innocent. I know where you've been. I know how much you've spent. I know you've been planning to leave me. Her face crumpled. You followed me. I protected myself. There's a difference. We sat in silence for several minutes. Upstairs, I could hear Emma's music playing, probably turned up to avoid hearing us fight. What happens now? Jessica asked finally. That depends on you. Do you want to try to fix this, or are you already gone? She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The Mike, who would have begged her to stay, who would have blamed himself for driving her away, was gone. In his place was someone colder, more calculating. Someone who had learned to play the game. I need time to think, she said. Fine. But while you're thinking, remember this. I'm not going to be the fool who pays for his wife's affair anymore. You want to be with Jace? Figure out how to afford it without my money. Jessica stared at me for a long moment, then got up and went upstairs. I heard our bedroom door close, then the sound of drawers opening and closing. An hour later, she came down with a suitcase. I'm going to stay with Tara for a few days. Okay. That's it? Just okay? I looked at her standing in our living room with her suitcase, ready to walk out on 15 years of marriage. What do you want me to say, Jess? Beg you to stay? Promise to change? We're past that. She hesitated at the door. What about Emma? What about her? She lives here. This is her home. She's my daughter, too. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you started your new life. Jessica left without another word. I sat in the quiet house, listening to Emma's music upstairs, and felt something like relief. The game had changed. Now we'd see who played it better. Jessica lasted 4 days at Tara's house before the cracks started showing. I know, because Emma told me. Despite everything, our daughter was still talking to both of us, and Jessica was apparently struggling with her new living situation. Mom says Tara's guest room is really small, Emma said over breakfast Saturday morning. And she has to share a bathroom with Tara's teenage son. I said, not looking up from my eggs. She asked if she could come get some more clothes. Her clothes are still here. She can come get them whenever she wants. Emma pushed her cereal around her bowl. Are you and Mom getting divorced? The question I'd been dreading. I looked at my 14-year-old daughter, trying to figure out how to explain that her mother was having an affair without destroying her relationship with Jessica. I don't know, sweetheart. That's up to your mom. But you're not fighting for her? That stopped me. What do you mean? In movies, when couples have problems, the guy always fights for the girl. He shows up with flowers and makes speeches about love. I set down my fork. This isn't a movie, Em. Sometimes people make choices that can't be fixed with flowers. But you still love her, right? The honest answer was complicated. I loved the woman I'd married 15 years ago. I loved the mother of my child, the person who used to laugh at my jokes and fall asleep on my shoulder during movies. But the woman who'd been lying to me for months, spending our money on another man, planning to divorce me and take half of everything, I wasn't sure what I felt for her anymore. It's complicated, I said finally. Emma nodded, like that made sense. Are you going to be okay? If she doesn't come back? I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. We're going to be fine. Both of us. That afternoon, Jessica came by to get more clothes. She looked tired, stressed in a way I hadn't seen since Emma was a baby, and we were both running on no sleep. How are you doing? She asked, like we were old friends catching up instead of spouses in the middle of a marriage breakdown. Fine. You? Tara's been great, but... She trailed off, looking around our kitchen like she was seeing it for the first time. I forgot how quiet it is here. Peaceful. Tara's house isn't peaceful? Jessica laughed, but it sounded forced. She has strong opinions about everything. What I should eat, what I should wear, how I should handle this situation. What does she think you should handle? She thinks I should file for divorce immediately. Get a lawyer. Fight for half of everything. Jessica looked at me carefully. She says you're probably hiding assets. I couldn't help but laugh. What assets? The garage equipment? My 10-year-old truck? The mortgage we're still paying on this house? That's what I told her. But she thinks all men hide money. Tara thinks all men are evil. That's why she's been divorced twice. Jessica smiled for the first time since she'd walked in. She does have a very specific worldview. We stood there in comfortable silence for a moment, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was rock bottom. Maybe we could start climbing back up. Then Jessica's phone buzzed, and I watched her face change as she read the message. The smile disappeared, replaced by that guilty, excited expression I'd learned to recognize. I should go, she said quickly. Hot date? The words came out sharper than I'd intended. Jessica's face flushed. Mike, don't. Don't what? Don't acknowledge that you're running off to see your boyfriend while we're having a conversation about our marriage? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Jess? Help me understand. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. The guilt was still there, but underneath it was something harder. You want to know what it's like? It's like being alive again. It's like remembering that I'm more than just a wife and mother and housekeeper. Her voice was getting stronger, more defiant. When I'm with Jace, I feel like myself again. And when you're with me? When I'm with you, I feel invisible. The words hit like a physical blow. I stepped back, actually staggered by the venom in her voice. 15 years, Jessica. 15 years I've worked my ass off to give you a good life. To give Emma a good life. And I made you feel invisible? You made me feel unnecessary. Like I was just part of the routine. Work, dinner, TV, bed. Every day the same. That's called stability. That's called being responsible adults. That's called dying slowly. She grabbed her bag from the counter. Jace makes me feel special, like I matter. You've always mattered. You're my wife. No, I'm your habit. There's a difference. She headed for the door, then turned back one more time. Tara's right about one thing. I do deserve better than this. Better than feeling guilty for wanting more out of life. Then go get it, I said quietly. but don't expect me to pay for it. After she left, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, thinking about what she'd said, about feeling invisible, about dying slowly, about deserving better. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had gotten comfortable, taken her for granted, stopped seeing her as anything more than part of the routine. But that didn't excuse the lying, the cheating, the months of deception, while she spent our money on another man. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I called a lawyer, not to file for divorce, not yet, but to understand my options, to learn what would happen if Jessica decided to get better by taking half of everything I'd worked for and giving it to a 24-year-old personal trainer who thought he deserved a free ride. The consultation was enlightening. In Ohio, adultery didn't matter much in divorce proceedings. Jessica could cheat openly and still get half of our assets, plus alimony, plus child support. But there were other options, other ways to protect myself and Emma if things got ugly. I scheduled a follow-up appointment and went home to wait. Jessica wanted better? Fine. I'd show her what better looked like when you had to earn it instead of just demanding it. The breaking point came 3 weeks later at Emma's school talent show. Jessica showed up with Jace. I was sitting in the auditorium, saving a seat for Jessica like I had for every school event for the past 14 years, when I saw them walk in together. Jessica looked nervous, but Jace had his hand on her lower back in a gesture that was clearly possessive. They sat 3 rows behind me. Emma was performing a piano piece she'd been practicing for months. When she finished, the audience applauded, and I stood up to cheer for my daughter. In that moment, I turned around and caught Jessica's eye. She looked mortified, like a teenager who'd been caught breaking curfew. Jace just looked smug. After the show, Emma ran up to us in the lobby. "Did you see? Did you like it?" "You were amazing, sweetheart," I said, hugging her. "Mom, did you—" Emma stopped mid-sentence when she saw Jace standing behind Jessica. "Who's this?" The silence was deafening. Parents and kids milled around us, but I felt like we were in a spotlight. "Emma, this is my friend Jace," Jessica said weakly. "Friend?" Emma looked between them, then at me. She was 14, not stupid. She could read the situation. "Nice to meet you, Emma," Jace said, extending his hand. "Your mom talks about you all the time." Emma ignored his hand. "Why are you here?" "Emma," Jessica said sharply, "be polite." "I am being polite. I'm asking why Mom's friend came to my school show instead of Dad." The kid had a point, and apparently she'd inherited my talent for cutting straight to the heart of things. "I should go," Jace said, finally reading the room. "No," Jessica said quickly. "You don't have to—" "Yeah, he does," Emma said flatly. I put my hand on Emma's shoulder. "Why don't we all go home and talk about this?" "I'm not going anywhere with him," Emma said, loud enough that other parents were starting to stare. Jessica's face was red with embarrassment and anger. "Emma, you're being rude. I'm being honest. There's a difference." My daughter looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that broke my heart. She knew. Maybe not all the details, but she understood that her family was falling apart, and she was angry about it. "Come on, Em. Let's go home." As we walked away, I heard Jace say something to Jessica about giving her space. I didn't look back. In the car, Emma was quiet for several blocks. "Mom's having an affair, isn't she?" she said finally. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "What makes you say that?" "I'm not stupid, Dad. She's been gone all the time, she's acting weird, and now she shows up to my talent show with some guy who looks like he stepped out of a fitness magazine." Emma stared out the window. "Plus, Tara's been filling her head with poison for months. You noticed that? Tara hates men. She thinks marriage is slavery. She's been trying to convince Mom to leave you since they started hanging out." I pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. "How do you feel about all this?" Emma was quiet for a moment. Sad, angry, confused. She looked at me. "Are you going to fight for her?" Do you want me to? I want our family back, but not if Mom doesn't want to be here. Emma's voice was steady, mature beyond her years. And I don't want you to be with someone who makes you miserable. Your mom doesn't make me miserable. Dad, you've been miserable for months. You think I don't notice, but I do. You stopped laughing. You stopped talking about anything except work and bills. Even before I knew about the affair, I could tell something was wrong. We sat in the car, father and daughter, talking about the end of life as we knew it. What happens now? Emma asked. I don't know yet, but whatever happens, you and I are going to be okay. Promise? Promise. That night, Jessica came home around 10 o'clock. Emma was in her room and I was in the living room waiting. We need to talk, she said. Yes, we do. She sat down across from me, the same position we'd been in during our first confrontation about the affair. But this time, something was different. She looked resolved, like she'd made a decision. I want a divorce, she said. The words didn't surprise me, but hearing them out loud still hurt. Okay. Okay? That's all you're going to say? What do you want me to say, Jess? I've been watching our marriage die for months. If you want to make it official, then let's make it official. She looked taken aback by my calm response. I thought you'd be more upset. I'm tired of being upset. I'm tired of fighting for someone who doesn't want to be fought for. It's not that simple. It is that simple. You want out. I'm not going to beg you to stay. We sat in silence for several minutes. Tara says I should ask for the house, Jessica said finally. Tara says a lot of things. What do you say? I don't know. I need somewhere to live. Emma needs stability. Emma has stability. Here, with me. Jessica's face hardened. She's my daughter too. Then act like it. Show up for her school events alone. Stop parading your boyfriend around like you're proud of blowing up her family. Jace is part of my life now. And Emma made it clear what she thinks about that. Jessica stood up, pacing to the window. This is exactly why I need to get away from here. Everyone judging me, making me feel guilty for wanting to be happy. No one's judging you for wanting to be happy. We're judging you for the way you went about it. I made mistakes, I know that, but I can't change what happened. You're right. You can't. So what's your plan? Marry Jace? Live happily ever after on alimony and child support? Maybe. Would that bother you? I looked at my wife, soon to be ex-wife, standing in our living room, planning her future with another man, and felt nothing but exhaustion. Honestly? No. If that's what makes you happy, go for it. But don't expect me to fund it. What does that mean? It means I've talked to a lawyer. I know what you're entitled to, and I know what I can protect. You want out? Fine. But you're not taking everything I've worked for to start your new life. For the first time since this conversation started, Jessica looked worried. Mike, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You want a divorce? We'll get divorced. You want to be with Jace? Be with Jace. But you're going to do it on your own dime, not mine. I don't have any money. You know that. Then I guess you better hope Jace does. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She'd been counting on taking half of our assets to fund her new life. The idea of starting over with nothing hadn't occurred to her. You're being cruel, she said quietly. I'm being practical. Something you might want to try. Jessica left the next morning. She took 2 suitcases and her car and moved in with Jace. 3 days later, my lawyer called. Jessica had hired an attorney and was demanding half of everything, including the business. The war was officially on. But I was ready for it.